Hey, John Lusk here of Lusk Archery Adventures. And first, let me just thank you for tuning in once again to my channel here. I'm pretty excited about my channel. As of this point when I'm releasing this video, I have almost 4 million views and about 8,000 subscribers. So if you're one of those loyal followers, thank you so much. If you're tuning in for the first time, please hit subscribe and click that little bell next to the subscribe button as well so you can be notified when new videos are released, because I have a lot of new videos coming up. I've got almost 100 videos on my channel. About 70 of them are bow hunts, my own bow hunts from all over the world, more than a dozen different species of animal. And then I've got a lot of broadhead testing. That's my real passion, is testing broadheads. I'm an engineer and I'm a pastor, so I get to talk about design stuff and kind of get the best of both of my professions and educations there. But anyway, I hope you watch those broadhead tests, and I hope they can help you select good broadheads. I've tested about 100 different heads, and I got a bunch more lined up in the months ahead that I'm going to be testing and releasing as well. So thank you for your support. Today, I'm going to be testing a really creative broadhead to hit the market, and that is the ZEUS. The package here says, ZEUS Broadhead Smart Head Technology, cut the ZEUS loose. And you're kind of like, what? Well, what's a ZEUS Broadhead? When I first saw this thing, check that out. I first saw it, I thought, what in the world is that? Is it a mechanical? Is it a fixed? What is it? And I tell you what, it never ceases to amaze me how creative people can be in designing broadheads. You kind of think, well, how creative can you be just putting a sharp thing on the end of a stick? Well, man, you can be really creative, and this is about as creative as they come. So they call it this smart head technology, and what that means is you're kind of getting the best of both worlds of a mechanical and a fixed blade broadhead, so to speak. That's what they're saying, and this is how it does that. First of all, this diameter of these blades are in a fixed position. They're 1.5 inches. These bleeders are 7/8 inch wide. So you've got a 1.5 inch this way, 7/8 inch this way. You got almost 2.5 inches of total cut. Now at the same time, the profile of those blades is really small. So the plan is that they would fly really well like a mechanical. Additionally, they have this tip, and the tip has these little grooves. I don't know if you can see it there, but they have many different little grooves in the tip itself, and the tip is wide. It's wider than the arrow shaft is. And so the design is that it's really going to do a great job at flying through the air, and as it spins, it's going to circulate the air around it. So kind of like a golf ball, the dimples on a golf ball do, so you don't get the vacuum from the back kind of making the ball go off course. Well, the same thing, that you don't get that vacuum on the head, and so as it rotates, it kind of rifles and it stays right on track there and flies better. That's the philosophy. So it flies like a mechanical, is what they say. Then additionally, the way it penetrates is interesting. So in this wide open position, it penetrates, again, that full 1.5 inch cut through normal tissue. But when it encounters a hard medium, these blades, I gotta be careful not to cut myself, I already did that. These blades retract, okay? At 40, it takes 48 pounds to compress a spring that's here inside. There's a little spring, a steel spring in there. And so these blades compress, and they can compress all the way down to 7/8 of an inch, the same as this. So say if they compress all the way into a bone, and you go, well, then I don't have any blades. No, you still got 7/8 of an inch this way and 7/8 of an inch this way. It's not that much different from a slick trick standard. So anyway, it's designed to do that. But then after it cuts through that hard thing with that lower cutting diameter, then this spring kicks in, and boom, the blades come right back, and then it's got that full 1.5 inches diameter cut again right there. So the thought again is you're getting the best of both worlds. You're getting the best of deep penetration because the blades cut back and compress back when they hit a hard surface, but then a big cut through softer mediums like animal tissue and hide and so forth. So that's the thinking. And I go, well, that's creative. I gotta be honest, I'm a bit skeptical. So I'm gonna be putting these things through the ringer and seeing how well they do. I'm gonna test them out to long range and shoot them and see how well they do. And then I'm also going to shoot them into the normal things that I've been testing broadheads in the last few months. I've got a couple layers of MDF, 1/2 inch MDF, and they're preceded by this foam mat that kind of simulates hide. We'll see how well they penetrate, how well they hold up to that. If they do well with that, then I may shoot them into a steel plate just to see if they can handle a steel plate in front of the MDF. We'll see how that goes. I don't know if they'll get that far, but I'm interested to see it. And for those of you who say, hey, well, you know, I don't care because I don't hunt MDF and I don't hunt steel plates, good for you. They'd be kind of hard to eat anyway. But this is just providing you with a data point. I don't have a live deer right here that I'm going to shoot this arrow through. I don't have a dog that I'm going to shoot it through, God forbid. I'm shooting it through wood just to give you another data point. You know, you can read the back of a package and gain some information on the specs and so forth. You can read some ads in a magazine or something, look online, but you want more data. If you're like me, you go, well, how well does it hold up? And how well does it penetrate? Well, this will give you some data points to consider as you're selecting your broadhead. Now, in terms of the materials, this tip is really interesting. It's a 441 steel, so it's a really strong, hardened steel. The ferrule is 7075 aluminum. So it's aluminum, but it's really strong aluminum, the strongest aluminum that any broadheads are using right now. The blades are stainless steel blades all around. And this tip, I might add, it unscrews. You can screw this hardened tip out and then screw in this is 100 grain. You can screw it out and then you screw in a longer tip that weighs 25 grains more, and then it becomes a 125 grain broadhead. So with the same broadhead, you get those extra tips. You can experiment and change your shooting with 125 or 100 grain. That's kind of cool. I like that. And the 125 grain tip is a lot longer, and so it looks like it's going to penetrate really well. So I'm curious to see how that goes. So, you know, good materials. Looks like good craftsmanship. It spins true. We're going to see how well it handles up in these tests. And as always, I'm going to be shooting it through my Bowtech Realm SR6. I got it on the comfort setting at 73 pounds, 27 inches of draw. I'm going to be shooting the Bishop Mammoth FOC King arrow. Got it footed here so it can handle pretty much anything. And we're going to see how well this broadhead does. Let's see the ZEUS at 60 yards. ZEUS at 80 yards. As for total penetration, these heads did really well. They blew all the way through two boards there and completely came out this backboard. Now as we examine the impact of the broadheads, we see in the entrance there a perfect entrance, and that is 1.5 inches by 7/8 inches, just as the blades themselves are. So they did not close at all. Those main blades did not close in. Then as we look at the first board, you can see the blades cutting right there. And the main blade was 1 inch upon impact there. The bleeders, the 7/8 of an inch crossways. As it came out, made a nice hole coming out, and then it embedded in the final one. And in this, you can see the bleeders didn't quite go all the way, but the blades had reopened up after they closed in the previous board. So that spring opened them back up a bit, and you see a little less than 1 inch of cut right there from the main blades on this board, and didn't reach to the bleeders. And then in the back, you can see it poking through here, and the blades, none of the blades made it all the way through, but it got really deep penetration. So here's the head. After it went through those boards, it wasn't easy to get out. I had to push it all the way through, which put a lot of extra pressure on it, and it still held up remarkably well. The blades are seems like just as sharp as they were. They're still shaven nail. They didn't bend. The ferrule spins true. everything held really well. The spring contracted a bit extra in there to where they're just a little bit, the blades are a little bit looser, so they collapse a little bit more than the original 1.5 inch. As you can see there, it's about 1.25 inch. But other than that, they just held up remarkably and honestly surprisingly well. Okay, now I'm going with the angled shot. I have this board set up at 45 degrees, and I'm hoping if it deflects, it goes into my Reinhardt, not into one of my trophies over there. This is the first time I've tried it in this setting, so let's see. Yeah, that's stuck in really well. Okay, here you see the impact of the angled shot. You can see the blades having cut in right there. And as for penetration, it stayed on course, it stayed straight and penetrated right through very easily. And it looks like the blade and the head held up really well. Let's take it apart. See the hole in the entrance hole that the head made on that angled shot. And it blew right through, the blades contracted as designed, and then it continued to penetrate. Right after it got through that board, the blades sprung back open, and here they are at their full deployment again of 1.5 inches. And as for durability, it held up super well. The spring is fully intact. The blades are just as sharp as they were, shaving my nail. The head spins true, so it did really well on the angled shot. Okay, now, just out of curiosity, I'm going to see how this head does on a steel plate. Okay, the penetration here was pretty amazing. I mean, it went through the steel plate, blew through the second 1/2 inch MDF, and then almost made it to the third. So here you see the head after it went through the steel plate and another layer of MDF, and this is after the angled shot, and you see that it held up remarkably well. The blades are a little bit loose because that spring is a little bit contracted. They're not the full 1.5 inch, they contracted just slightly, and you see those bleeder blades bent just a little bit. That wow, they did surprisingly well. A little bend like that is kind of a, I don't know, it's not that big of an issue because they're continuing to cut as they go in. I gotta be honest, this head surprised me. When I first was reading about it, I thought, oh man, you know, what kind of newfangled weird thing is that? And it is that, okay, I'll give you that. That's pretty creative right there. But man, first I shot it at the distance, as you saw, 80 yards. It flew just like my field points. I was really impressed. I mean, first shot, boom, right there, just like my field points. It flies extremely well as advertised. Then I was a little suspect of the durability. Shooting it into 2.5 inches of this MDF, it held up really well. The blades were like, you know, looked like brand new. And then I shot it through another layer of MDF that was preceded by a stainless steel plate. And man, it held up well to that as well. A little bit of bending there in the bleeders, but you know, that's a lot better than breaking. If they bend, I can live with that. If they break off, I get concerned about that. So they just barely bent after going through all that steel. And the tip, of course, held up well. The blades still stayed in great shape. The spring got some damage, so it collapsed a little bit more than the full 1.5 inches. But again, they're coming out with a little assembly package where you can put in a new spring there and get it replaced like that. So overall, I'd say this is a really creative head. Penetration-wise, man, you see it. It did really well. The penetration is, honestly, it's the best I've tested so far in terms of this medium. I've been shooting this medium of MDF with the foam in front of it on maybe, I don't know, like a dozen different broadheads so far, and this has penetrated the best of any of them. Now, I will say the blades collapse, so it's by design. It didn't cut all that tissue as it's going through all those mediums, but it did penetrate deeply. So it's interesting, you know, it'll give you a deep penetration, but if you hit that bone, it's not going to cut the bone all the way through, but then that's what's going to allow it to penetrate more deeply, right? So it's kind of a good trade-off like that. It's something to really consider. So smart technology, indeed it is. Worth a try? Definitely. Good job, ZEUS. I appreciate the creativity.